Welcome to Global View. Today, an exceptional guest, someone who doesn't need introduction, but I'll do it anyway. James Okisa is a fearless investigative journalist, founder of Project Veritas and the KEEFE Media Group, a filmmaker, someone who exposed the wrongdoing of powerful institution and private company through pioneering a new form of journalism and starting this citizen journalist challenging powerful institution. Welcome to Global View.
Great to be with you.
Thank you, James. We have seen unfolding a new era of American history with Trump taking over, aggressively trying to dismantle all this lawfare and all this corruption in both in the governments, but also in lobbyists and all forces like a USA that tried actually to influence in shaping narratives. You have been exposing a lot of corruption, but you have been, as a result, prosecuted. So is the time where you are prosecuted for persecuting a crime over, or the agencies will start collaborating with people like you working for justice?
I was thinking about that question today, and thank you for the question. Is the political prosecutions over? And if justice is dependent upon who is in power, then it seems like we're going to go back and forth every 4 or 8 years. I think there needs to be a detente in this country where we don't go after people because we don't like them. It's not American. There were a lot of people who were victims of prosecution, including George. In this case, in my case, it was just so absurd for the FBI to raid a newsroom. It's just such an outrageous and extreme form of activity that's completely not justified. I think they crossed the line and they unsealed the affidavit, but it was everything was redacted. Every single word of the probable cause that was used to obtain the search warrant was completely redacted, which is a disgrace. It's a national disgrace. I intend to sue them, but it's I don't think we've seen it this bad. So I think like I said, I think there needs to be a detente where we stop targeting people just because we don't like them. That is not the American way.
Jailing journalists in countries like Turkey or some tin pot dictatorships is the norm. In the United States, the First Amendment is sacrosanct. It's assuming that we believe that we have a constitutional republic with a freedom of speech amendment. The way the Biden administration and the Obama administration before them has acted in this country, it seems that they would like to usurp and replace our Constitution, our freedoms, and our liberties with something foreign, alien, and almost resembling a communist totalitarian world, along with the tech oligarchy abiding by them and helping them do it. How do you think Trump can push back against this slow but encroaching assault on our freedoms, on our liberties, and on the Constitution itself, when journalists like yourself have been targeted and don't even seem to have that liberty to say what they want or report facts the way they are?
Well, the first step in my case is they need to unredact the affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen. I was angry when I saw it. I was angry because, as your audience may or may not know, when you obtain a search warrant, you have to get probable cause. And it's very rare for the Department of Justice to close a case. That's only happened a few times in the history of my attorney's 30-year career. And it's very rare because the prosecutors, the United States attorneys in the Southern District of New York, don't like to admit that they use such an excessive tool to raid a newsroom. Is just, like you said, George, if that was done by another country, our State Department would issue sanctions. Like, it's just so preposterous. But it was done in Westchester, New York. So they redacted every word of the justification. The Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, expressly forbids such raids, but they did it anyway. And it's this sort of Orwellian notion that all journalists are equal, but some are more equal than others. And in January 6th, I mean, as my criminal defense attorney pointed out, at least that was theoretically a colorable crime. In this case, this is just so ridiculous. But I do think the American people, by and large, even liberals, I think by and large, we still agreed that there should be a First Amendment. If the Trump administration did this to New York Times reporters, I'd be the first one to stand up and say it's wrong. And I think there's still some agreement on this. The ACLU, the Reporters Committee, filed amicus in my case. The American Civil Liberties Union thought it was wrong. And they all think that they should unseal the affidavit. So the Trump administration, the first thing, I don't know if Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has authority. I think she can order the U.S. Attorney here, Silberman is his name, to unredact this. They're going to say, well, the privacy interests of the people that, you know, no. Whatever marginal privacy interests of the people behind those black lines is outweighed by the more important interest in the First Amendment. And if you're going to take this extraordinary step and target people just because you don't like their journalism, then you're going to have to sacrifice whatever marginal privacy interests are at stake. I think that's what the Trump administration can do in my case, and I think this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, because certainly the Democrats have normalized selective and politically motivated persecutions, targeting, and I think educating Americans, whether they're on the right, the center, or the left, about the dangers of this erosion of the rule of law, freedoms like the one that you're talking about, and journalists doing just their work is very important, because right now what I think is happening, and I think you would agree, James, is that the left has dehumanized the right. The mainstream media has portrayed anyone who's associated to over 75 million MAGA voters, Donald Trump, his orbit, or people like yourself, as some sort of fringe, obscure, dangerous element that is designed to undermine our republic, undermine the Constitution. But in reality, they themselves are doing it. So I think I'm very happy to hear that the ACLU and some of these, if you want to call them leftist or liberal organizations, are actually teaming up with you. So,
well, I think that there's a lack of focus in this country on principles. Everyone's focused on the exercise of raw power, and I appreciate that elections have consequences, and I think it's important who's in power, but I don't even think this is a political issue that we're talking about. We're talking about equality before the law, which is fundamentally American. We should be treating each other as equal before the law. I just want to read something. I think this is truly unbelievable. This is in the search warrant. They in the warrant, it says, during the execution of the warrant, law enforcement personnel are authorized to obtain from James O'Keefe III the display of any physical biometric characteristics such as fingerprints or facial necessary to unlock any phones in his possession. So they got a warrant against my reporters to force them, like the scene in The Clockwork Orange, to look at the phone so they could go into my Signal and look at all the people I'm talking to. Like I said, this is not a Stanley Kubrick movie. This is not North Korea. It's not Cuba. No. This is the United States. And people are shocked by this. I mean, rightfully so. And what's probably even more shocking is how unshocked the New York Times reporters are, because according to people familiar with the matter, they're very disappointed that I'm not in jail. And that's why we need citizen journalism. But the SDNY, the Southern District, also some people refer to it as the Sovereign District because they act like this. The SDNY does not think that I'm a journalist. And they don't think that I'm entitled to press freedom or First Amendment protections. In fact, the U.S. attorneys in the Southern District actually said, I'm actually quoting them, they said James O'Keefe is not a journalist because he secretly records people.
Well, James, we have seen them resorting to every form of abuse just to silence voices like yours, while at the same time, mainstream media and mainstream outlet lost all credibility. We got to the era where Elon Musk clearly stated that you are the media now. It looks like we walked straight into the citizen journalism. Credibility is ahead. What will be your advice for everybody who would like to embark in your mission? How can we help spread real news, contribute to information now that everybody has a platform?
Well, I think the number one piece of advice is be fearless. Every day I see people saying that, I'm afraid of retaliation. Even I was reading the newspapers today, and people spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation. People live by lies. They're not willing to speak the truth or speak up because they're scared of losing something. They're scared of what might happen to them. And my number one piece of advice, whether you're a citizen journalist or just an American citizen exercising your civic duty, is don't live by lies. Speak up. And I'm not afraid of retaliation. Go ahead, retaliate against, martyr me if you want. They were never going to win this case. It was going to go to jury if it even got that far, which I don't think it was. I think it was an exercise to scare me. But if it was going to go to jury, I'd win. There's no way they were going to get a conviction. So I think people need to, I think thanks to Elon's X, people are empowered, but I still think people are very afraid. I get it, but we need more people to not be afraid.
Yes, and we see agencies like USAID's even funding these fake narratives through channels like MSNBC or CNN. I know you filed a lawsuit against CNN. Can you talk about that?
I filed a lawsuit against CNN a couple of years ago, and an appeals court, federal appeals court, last couple months ruled that it can proceed. They said I was banned for, quote, promoting misinformation, which was not true. That's not why Twitter banned me years ago. So we sued them for defamation. We sued the New York Times for defamation, got past motion to dismiss, but these legal battles are very challenging because it requires a lot of resources, many years in the making. But I think there's cracks in the legacy media's dam, and citizen journalists have all the power now, for sure.
That's great.
James, last question, because I know your time is running short. You're a very influential journalist. You've broken some of the biggest stories exposing Democrat corruption of the last decade, in my opinion. I think millions would agree. I also think it was because of this influence and your growing clout that your initial organization, Project Veritas, that you founded, was subverted from within, and there was essentially a silent coup against you. That's my assumption. That's how I've read the situation. With the last question, can you explain the process of what led to you leaving Project Veritas and what you are working on currently, and which kind of stories you're looking to break these next 4 years under the Trump administration now that he's back in power?
Well, yeah, 2 years ago this week, I was indefinitely suspended from the organization I founded, Project Veritas. It was very painful, the most painful thing I've ever been through. Betrayal hits hard. People ask me every day, James O'Keefe, what happened at Project Veritas? Every day, every hour of the day. I was in the gym this morning, someone asked me, because it doesn't make any sense. But it actually, I think it does make perfect sense. I think envy and greed had a very major part in that, and everyone experiences this in life in many different ways. I think I don't know that there was some bribe. There could have been some conflicts of interest. I think that'll come out here soon because there's litigation. But I think what it really was I think one of the board members was very jealous of me, and after that Pfizer story, he said as much to people. He said, we don't need James O'Keefe here anymore. I was viewed as a liability. Some of the moment of greatest accomplishments carries with it some of the greatest liabilities. The moment of greatest achievement often carries the greatest risk. So when you start to become very effective in this business, in the change the world business, and if you don't surround yourself with the right people who are strong, who have the same values as you, who are unbreakable, you are going to become their enemy because they view you as a liability or because they want power or something. So that's kind of Shakespearean tragedy. And I was indefinitely suspended. There was an emergency board meeting where the chief financial officer brought all these weird things up, and 10 of 70 employees came in and said that I was hard to work for. And I started a new organization called OMG. I also started a nonprofit called Citizen Journalism Foundation. And instead of having 75 employees, now I have 15. And I have a rock solid team. I also started making movies. I made a film called Line in the Sand with Tucker Carlson. I know you guys worked alongside Tucker. So sometimes things happen for a reason. I'm quite literally relocating to West Palm Beach, Florida, where our new headquarters is this month. Nice. And I think that had to happen because I surrounded myself with better people to make what I do more sustainable. and hopefully it can be a lesson for other people who are on the front lines. Just be very careful who you surround yourself with.
I agree completely about envy as a powerful force. We have seen delivering an incredible work, and as a result of being targeted by your own people. But now your work is shining even more, and we were the premiere of your film, Line in the Sand. One last question on my side is that how do you see the situation at the border changing from where when you filmed, now that Trump has finally undertaken actions, concrete action?
That's a great question. I haven't been down there. I do intend to go back there. I think some things are going to change, but I also recognize that the nature of the bureaucracy, the Border Patrol agents, they're processing people. They're not enforcing the law. And I also recognize the cartel makes so much money. So I've heard that things are slowing down. I think there's a deterring effect for the influx, but it is going to be very interesting. And I do intend to follow up. It's a really, really interesting question. Tom Homan seems like a decent man. And I hope that they protect some of the whistleblowers that are going to be coming forward. And some of my whistleblowers have been punished for you saw in the film, Zach, in the Line in the Sand, was he lost his gun and his badge. Hopefully they're reinstated. But it's interesting to see the bureaucracy and is opposing Trump and the executive branch of government. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out over the next 9 months.
That's so great, and we highly recommend everybody watch your films. James, where can our viewers follow you and watch your movies and follow your next steps and your next projects?
O'Keefe Media Group, o'keefemediagroup.com. You're directed there to everything. And also James O'Keefe the third. That's James O'Keefe III on X and Instagram.
Thank you so much for being with us. We really continue doing your great work, and I hope to have you back.
I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much, James. Thank you.